just cracked the plastic. Everything's good. Still seems dry.
Nothing's unsealed. Okay.
Sometimes there can be a bit of liquid inside the box, but that's fine. It just arrived like a minute ago, maybe. I just set up a camera and are opening the box right now. Just can find this line. Not always the best at finding the line, but today it's playing nice for me. So I ordered some nerite snails, and nothing's floating, so that's a good sign. So I'm gonna assume they're okay. One of them's, well, three of them are attached to the plastic that I can see, so that's a good sign. Like I said, nothing's floating. Now for the shrimpies. Oh, I see a bunch swimming, so
there's movement at the
they're seeing light for the first time in about 24 hours, 48 hours, so yeah, I'm not seeing any problems. So that's a good sign.
Underneath the spot on that side, that's not a shrimp, is it, underneath there?
No, I think there's just a bit of poop, a bit of waste in there.
That's right.
Okay, so that's
so far so good.
And see the new snowballs swimming around. Bunch of duckweed in there, but that's frankly to be expected. It's usually how they're kept. So I'll try not to transfer any of that, but see how I go. Here you can see the duckweed that they came in the bag. I was very careful to skim and separate it all out. It's really useful to have. It's a good plant, but it's very invasive as well. If you get it in your tank, get one piece in your tank, and you don't want it, you'll be fighting millions of pieces for years to come. So I very meticulously took it all out, and time will tell if I'm successful. My 10 new snowball shrimp settling in. While it's not easy to see their bodies, it's quite easy to see their stomachs, which are bright green because they were transported with duckweed, which I assume they've been eating for the last couple of days. It's good to transport them with that kind of thing in there, so yeah, they can have a little snack, but at the same time, it's not a big problem because you don't want them to generate too much waste if they're going to be in there for a few days. I anticipate they were in the bag for just under 48 hours, so that's quite a good travel time. Nice and safe, but yeah, I ordered 10, and 10 have arrived nice. I'm currently drip acclimating the new snowball shrimp. They're in this container here as before, just transferred underneath the tank that they're eventually going to go into, which is this tank over here. What I have is a piece of airline tube. It goes down into a airline tap. Water's dripping at about 1 drop a second. You can see it there. I'm doing that for at least half an hour. I'll see how I feel after that and how the shrimp are behaving. The reason for this is I'm trying to introduce them to the difference between the water conditions. This will have water conditions which although ideal for the species, is not the water that they're used to. They've been in this water for about 48 hours, and it's changed slowly over time as they've been, defecating and breathing and everything in it. But and it's also their home water. So what I'm trying to do is introduce them slowly to basically a hybrid between the two. Get the volume of this water to be about double what it originally was. So I'm adding, if that was 1, I want to add another 2 more. So to that volume. So they get used to the pH, the temperature, the general hardness, and the carbonate hardness, the KH and the GH, all the way around, of the new water, so that they can, so when I transfer them in, it's not a shock to their system. The air temperature of this room is about 20 degrees. I have tanks in this room that are unheated. In other words, they just run at air temperature and they're recording 20 degrees. The tank I'm putting them into, I do have a heater in there, and it's scheduled at 22 degrees currently. It maintains that 24/7. And yeah, for now, because I'm not super familiar with this species, and I'd also like to get them breeding, I want to make sure that they have a good floor of temperature, which is to say 22 degrees, as opposed to whatever the air temperature is in this room. It can fluctuate down to about 16, 17 degrees. Again, probably going to be fine for this species, but I would like to promote breeding, and one of the ways to do that is to maintain temperature at around, I'm choosing 22 degrees. You can go 24. They can survive recorded to about 30 degrees. Again, you don't want to do that long term, though. That will, they'll reach a point where breeding is encouraged, but their lifespan is shorter until they hit a temperature where they will survive, but they will not breed, and they will die very quickly. So again, trying to keep them around 22 degrees, which is going to be the minimum temperature, and then I control the temperature in this room so it's not too hot. And yes, the board games on the left, you can see some of my favorites. Yeah, not talking about those. The container is now gone, and that's because the shrimp have been transferred into their new tank. In fact, it's been about 18 hours. I didn't record the transfer, as best practice is to put animals in a new home in dark conditions. The lights were off, you wouldn't have been able to see much, but you can see there is one of the new shrimp and one of the new nerite snails feeding on some algae wafer I put in there yesterday. There is another snowball shrimp swimming around, exploring the environment. If the camera will focus, there we go. Yeah, so just gonna sit with them for a little bit. So the tip for putting shrimp into a tank, shrimp nets are really nice. They're deep nets, and the idea is come up behind them, because the shrimp swim backwards when they're surprised, and they're surprised when a net approaches. So if you bring a net up behind them, then they'll actually jump into the net, making it really easy to transfer them in. You'll see a shrimp exploring the filter back there. These are very large sponge filters, extremely large relative to the size of this tank, but I like these size filters for these shrimp tanks, and that's because shrimp will spend all day grazing on what gets caught in the filters. So, they aren't unnecessarily large, but frankly, I got them after an eBay accident. The seller sent me the wrong filters, but turns out that they were better than what I initially ordered, so I'm quite enamored with these large double-barreled filters. in these tanks. Again, you can get away with a lot smaller, but I would still highly recommend sponge filters in a shrimp tank, as they collect the debris out of the water column, and a fair bit of that debris is still edible, and the shrimp will spend a lot of their time combing through that collected debris, looking for what's edible. So thank you for coming along with me on this little journey into snowball shrimp that are now in my 20-liter shrimp rack. I have four tanks, each 20-liter tanks set up the same, almost identical equipment in each one. They're all powered off of the same single air pump, powering each of the sponge filters using a manifold distributor. And yes, the tanks, black sand on the left, has a bit of an experiment, and I decided to put the snowball shrimp in against the black sand, nice and easy to see. There is a cherry shrimp breeding project going along in here. And yes, if it looks like there's leaf litter in here, that is because that is leaf litter. They're called Indian almond leaves. Shrimp love grazing on them and the things that grow on those leaves. So the leaves are themselves food for the shrimp. This is another cherry shrimp, red shrimp breeding project. You can see one of the babies flitting along there, and another one in the background. And this tank over here, you can see it's got a couple red shrimp in it, which I'm using, which are part of my breeding project. And also this tank contains tangerine tiger shrimp, which I'm just looking for examples of as I learn some camera technique. And they all seem to be hiding on me, I'm afraid. Oh, actually, I can show you a baby, which I only just spotted yesterday. Where did you go? There you are. Baby tangerine tiger. So I'm very pleased that they are in fact breeding. I was a little doubtful for a while, but there's the evidence. The adult is about, at a guess, about 10 times larger. So yes, definitely a baby tangerine that's been born probably in the last couple weeks, hatched, and has grown to that size. So yes, thank you for joining me on the journey. See you next time. So thank you to abquatics.shop, abquatics.shop, an Australian online retailer of shrimp, which is where these snowball shrimp and frankly some other shrimp in my shrimp collection have come from. I'm a repeat happy customer.